Hi everyone and welcome back to my top 500 games. We are currently at number 128, which is Etrian Odyssey. And they've had several Etrian Odyssey games since the first one, but I am specifically talking about the original Etrian Odyssey here. This is basically a DS game. It is what would be known as an old school dungeon crawler. It's an RPG basically. You create a team of 5 characters, you can set different roles for them, and you head into this dungeon which is known as the Labyrinth. And you walk around in a first-person view and you have random battles and you will encounter different characters and all that sort of stuff. Now the bottom screen is used for you to draw out a map. Now what games would do these days is they would just have the map reveal as you walk around. The way that this game works is that you actually have to draw the map yourself, and it's meant to be rather reminiscent of the old days where you would have to draw maps on graph paper so that you know where exactly you've been and all that. And I can see a quality to that. And I know that some people really don't like this idea and some people really do like this idea. Personally, I think it's rather neat. I mean, it's not something that I'd want in all games, for certain. In fact, I'm not even sure if I'd want to see it that often, but even still, I was perfectly fine with it, and I did think it was quite nice to draw everything out. What's also interesting about the map drawing thing, which I think actually does differentiate from just a map that automatically reveals itself, is that you are given different icons that you can place on this map that you are drawing, but there is no set key for what these individual things mean. So you could put an icon down on this map and it can mean something to you that it doesn't necessarily have to mean to everyone. And so there is, of course, that element of trying to be creative with the whole thing. I remember I played this game a lot in 2007 because it would have been about that time that I got it. I remember being in one of the rooms at university, just sat there on my DS playing this game, and the battles take place in a first-person view as well. You'll just have the enemies facing you and all your characters are displayed as just a bunch of health bars and TP bars, which is pretty nice. And each character you have to give them a specific type of class as well, which will determine what type of abilities they can use. You will also come across enemies called FOEs, which are basically things that you can see on the map. You can see them walking around. They appear as like these orange glowy ball things just floating around, and so you can walk into them or step to the side to walk around them. And these are basically like the more powerful enemies that act as bosses. What's also quite interesting, I remember, is that there are times where you could be fighting one of these, and as you're taking turns on the map, these other FOEs can walk around, and if they enter the space that you're on, they will enter the battle. So I have this memory of playing this game and just fighting against this FOE, and loads of wolves just kept running into the battle, and it just made it harder and harder. On top of the labyrinth, there is also the main town, which is where you can rest at the inn or buy weapons and all that sort of stuff. You know, take on quests, that kind of stuff. What's actually interesting, I think, though, is that the way that you go about the town is actually something that I came up with myself before having played this game, and that is that it's all menu based. So you got this town which is just a menu on the screen that you select places to go and stuff, and then when you go into the labyrinth, that's when it stops being just a menu, and that's when you go around and try to explore and all that sort of stuff. And so that's quite interesting how I came up with that idea before seeing it work out in this game. Number 127 is Onimusha 3 Demon Siege. This is one of your Capcom action games. And so the basic idea is that you've got 2 characters, Samanosuke and Jacques, and they both are from different timelines, but then something happens and then they switch and they're in different timelines all of a sudden. They're in each other's timelines. Not timelines, but also time periods. So Samanosuke travels to the present day and Jacques travels into the past. And they each have different abilities. So for example, Samanosuke will use swords like a samurai, because that's basically what he is, whereas Jacques is more based on firearms, and whoever you play as will be determined by the story. So you'll play as one character for a while, then the story will switch to another character, and you can actually level up in this game. When you defeat the enemies, you can hold down a button to suck in these souls basically, and different coloured ones will give you different things. So you will get the experience orbs, or whatever you want to call them, and you can spend those on your weapons to level them up. And as you progress through this game, you will unlock special attacks, and you will gather different weapons and stuff, and the variation of ways that you can approach different situations will also increase. So for example, you will hit a point where you will suddenly be able to switch between the two characters at will. But it's also a very Capcom-esque game as well in how it treats New Game Plus and all that. I never actually completed it, but it does what Capcom makes games do, and that is that it will give you a rank at the end of your playthrough, and then based on that rank you can start again and you will get extra bonuses and stuff. And your rank is determined by things such as how fast you've completed the game and how many times you've saved and all that sort of stuff. I really did like this game, and I really did like not only the combat but also the few puzzles that there were. They seemed pretty sweet, and I also remember there was this training mode where you could enter this arena and you were given a challenge, and then you would gain stuff based on your ability to complete those challenges, and I thought that was really good. Number 126 is Mario Kart Double Dash, and this is quite a strange entry because I have 100%ed this game. However, I have never played this game at my own house, which is very strange. I remember I played this a lot at Josh's house. I basically started it there, took my memory cards, and over the next few weeks, or however long it was, I eventually got the 100%, so I did everything in the game. I got first place on all of the cups, and that includes the reverse tracks as well. Mario Kart is a game series that really takes no introduction, because everyone knows what Mario Kart is. It's a kart racing game. It's one where the infamous blue shell came from. And so I really don't have too much to say about this game really overall, because my main memories of this game is just playing this at Josh's house. But what makes Double Dash stand out as a Mario Kart game is that in this game you don't just choose one character, you choose two. And so each character has their own special unique weapon that they can get, or rather each pair has their own unique weapon that they can get. And so my favourite characters of this game when I played was the two Koopa Trooper, so I could get more of the red shells. Not that I'm absolutely sure that that was the best decision to make, it's just that when I played it, that's how I found it to be. And I did quite like some of the level designs as well. I like the Wario circuit, or at least I think it's the Wario circuit, where it's all like this giant cage, like high up in the sky, and it's a rather long track. I think that's Wario. I think it might be Waluigi who has the indoor racetrack level. I'm not too sure, but that's not the one I'm referring to. To be honest, I wasn't too keen on the Baby Park, where it's just a tiny arena but with 7 laps. Nah, I didn't like that one as much. I mean, I found it interesting how it was different, but as for actually playing it, I didn't find it all that interesting overall. Number 125 is Heart of Darkness, and I don't remember when I got this game, but as always with PS1 games, it would have been a game that my granddad just brought for us, a copied version, and we just played that. But I do remember it was a 2-disc game, despite the fact that it was a rather short game, probably because of the graphical quality and the FMVs, that being the big 3D cutscenes or whatever you want to call them. FMVs is what they used to be called, full motion video. And this is a very strange game because it's along the same lines as something like Abe's Odyssey or the original Prince of Persia or something like that, where it's rather, and I'm going to use this word, cinematic, but it's also a 2D platformer, and this is perhaps the most linear game I have ever played. Because in this game, there's no bonuses, there's no secrets, there's no extras, there's none of that. It's just you have to play through the game from start to finish, and everything that's laid out in the game is set out for it to be that way, and so you will come across things in a very, very particular way. And so it's not like a Mario game where you will have a question block, and even though the question blocks can have different things in, you know, a question block is always going to be a question block. But with a game like Heart of Darkness, you can never be sure of what anything truly is, and I think that's part of the beauty, which, to be honest, it's a type of thing that many games do these days, which I think is just terrible, but that doesn't change the fact that I did really enjoy Heart of Darkness back when I played it. I suppose it was kind of like a simple puzzle game, or just like an adventure game, I suppose. It's very hard to describe, but I will give examples of the types of things I'm talking about. The story is, as far as it's made clear, is that the main character, Andy, is caught sleeping in class, and so the evil teacher locks him in the closet and he's scared of the dark, so that's sort of setting that into place. And then it turns out that there's going to be a full solar eclipse, and for some reason he loses his dog, and he thinks, well, there's obviously a dark evil force going on which is taking the dog away. And so he rushes over to his treehouse and he launches this machine which will send him deep into the Grand Canyon, which wasn't his intention, but you know, it's just the way of things, it ends up crashing. And he's there all by himself looking for his dog, that's his main goal, and he's got this laser that he's made, which sounds rather outlandish, and it is rather outlandish. And so you've got the first level where you're just walking along and you get these weird shadow monsters which are going to be persistent throughout the entire game. Like little things that will make weird squeaking noises, and they'll run around and they'll jump and they'll flap their arms to fly around, and you have this giant powerful laser so that you can zap them all. And it can be quite overwhelming at first, but you do have a lot of firepower in this laser. But then soon after that, this monster will pop out and he will eat your laser, and so you have to continue on from that point without the laser. And because that's the point where you don't have the laser, the enemies that you come across at that point, you will have to find other ways to get around. You won't have swarms of these dark things anymore because you don't have the laser, and so there'll be parts where you've got to like sneak across, or you've got to find ways of getting around them, and you come across different things along the way. So you've got this thing which gives you the ability to sort of destroy these dark things with this green power, or just the green stuff as you call it. And you can also grow trees with it, so there might be seeds you can knock around and you could use this power to grow a tree. And that's basically used for puzzles. But like I said, with things not being 100% sure of what they are, an example of this is that there's one part where there is a seed that you can turn into a tree, but if you try to climb the tree that grows from it, the shadow of it will attack you, so you then have to push it along so that you can then grow the tree to a place where there's no wall behind it, so you can't be hit by that shadow. I understand that I am basically listing a bunch of very specific events here, but that's because of the nature of the game overall. But I feel it's one of those games where if you play it, you can really learn to appreciate the different things within the game and just the weirdness of things that you'll come up against. And I understand one of the big things that people do have a problem with, and I think this is more of an age thing, is that you can't exactly perfectly aim when you're shooting things. It has to be more in line with what the D-pad will let you shoot. So either up, down, left, right, or one of the diagonals, which can cause issue. But, you know, it's one of those things where I think you can just get used to it and you could just learn about those things, although there are times where it is very tense and things might just pop out and seem to get you out of nowhere. But even still, I think this is a type of game where you do have to be of a particular mindset in order to be able to really appreciate this game. I know there was a video done by Caddicarus and the Completionist talking about this game, and neither of those people liked the game, but I honestly really do. And again, I'm going to use these words in a organic manner, but it is actually a unique experience. And I know they're buzzwords that the modern game industry uses, but here I definitely actually mean that. I kind of feel that this is a type of game that the makers of cinematic games wish that they could make today, but they don't, because they don't have the imagination that they would need to come up with such unusual events. I'll tell you what's also interesting about this game as well, that has nothing to do with my experience of actually playing the game, but I remember one time seeing a clip of what I believe turned out to be this game, and my first thought of it was, Wow, a 2D game on the PlayStation? And it really blew my mind at the time. And I believe it was the lava segment of this game, which of course at the time when I saw it I didn't think, oh that's Heart of Darkness. But I think once I got Heart of Darkness I saw it and I thought, oh it's that lava segment from that game that I was amazed was a 2D game on the PlayStation. Number 124 is MotorStorm Pacific Rift, and I got this many years after release. In fact, I got this very cheap. I think I got it like £2 or something from a second-hand store, but I got it and I really enjoy this game. The basic way I can describe it is that it's a racing game, so really there's not too much to talk about because I've talked about many racing games, and I don't really have that much of a story to go into surrounding this game. I don't have any particularly fond memories because it wasn't from that long ago. I haven't played it loads or anything like that, but I still really like this game. And the main theme of MotorStorm is that it's meant to be, you know, sort of like an aggressive and angry game and rather testosterone fueled type of game. And because of that, you're going to have all these like aggressive crashes and all that sort of stuff, which I don't care about. You know, the whole thing of, wow, look at the size of that crash, I don't care, whatever. But in this game, you have, which is rather standard in a racing game, you can have a turbo effect, so you can press the button and you will speed up. But as a result of that, this turbo bar will increase over time, and so you have to use it to get yourself faster, but don't use it too much so that you burn yourself out. And of course, if you're not using it, the turbo bar cools down. But also what this game does is it uses water to sort of help cool down your turbo faster. And so there might be parts throughout the different races where you'll have puddles of water, or like a fire hydrant is broken and there's just water spraying out everywhere. You can actually use that to your advantage so that you can get more turbo out. And there are actually some levels where it's raining and you can use that to your advantage as well, so it means that you can do more turbo than you usually could because the constant flow of water is cooling down your engines. That's the idea, I suppose. What I do find interesting about this game in particular, though, is that each of the levels are designated into one of 4 different categories, and each category is there based off one of the 4 elements. So you've got fire, water, wind, and earth. And so, for example, the earth levels will be very dirt-based, so you won't have very good traction on the racetracks. And then you'll have the wind elemental levels, and those levels are high on mountains, and they also have big wide open spaces, so you're more able to do the large jumps through the air. You've also got the water levels, which are set on this sort of like a tropical island where there's lots of water around, and so you can really make use of the different segments of water. And the fire one is around a volcano, so on those levels you are heating up faster than what you usually would, and you've got to be careful to avoid the different bits of lava. And I know it seems like just a weird and a minor little thing, you know, but I find that interesting, the way that they have gotten these different elements and they have actually incorporated that into racetrack design. I think that's neat. But I am going to end this episode here, so thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next part.